Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome and thanks for making time to join us this afternoon, or maybe it's morning or evening at your end. Thanks again. This is an exclusive webinar for SimaPro users. So if you have a valid service contract or a valid temporary license, you've received an invitation from us or from one of our partners. So thanks again for joining us, and just please keep in mind that we will not be sharing the recording for this webinar. So feel free to take notes or whatever as we go along. Some practical information. All attendees are muted, so you will only be hearing the speakers at the session. So if you have any questions, just feel free to use the chat box or the question box, and we will handle the questions immediately or at the end during the Q&A. So thanks again for joining. I'm Ruba. I'm the Senior Customer Service Specialist at PRé, and I'll be facilitating this session. We're delighted to have Leo Breedveld with us. He is co-founder of TOBE, and he's one of the main speakers for this session. TOBE is our SimaPro partner in Italy, and we've been working together for, I don't know, around 15 years or so, Leo. So Leo is an expert with over 20 years experience on LCA, lifecycle costing, and EPD, and he's been helping organizations with integrating sustainability metrics in their practices and their DNA. Leo's also a lecturer and a trainer for several universities, research centers, and companies across Europe, Asia, and Africa. And from the PRé side, Jori Coustillas is also joining, and he'll be presenting and actually giving some demonstrations in this session. So, good afternoon, Jori.
Good afternoon.
Jori has joined our team in 2015 as a consultant and later on became a product owner. So at the moment, he's in charge of the development of the SimaPro family of software solutions. Before I switch things over to Leo, I'd like to briefly introduce PRé as well. So our main mission is to guide positive change with fact-based solutions, and our core values mainly involve innovation, transparency, and collaboration. And one way in quantifying sustainability is by developing SimaPro, for example, but PRé also plays an active role in a variety of projects and initiatives such as PEF, Social Roundtable, and so on. So thanks again for being part of our large SimaPro family, which reaches more than 3,000 users worldwide, and it's not via PRé alone, but of course via our partner network, such as via Leo, our Italian partner, TOBE. And a little bit about what you can expect in the next hour. So we'll start with an introduction into EPD. So what is it? What is an EPD? Why should you do one, or are you involved in making one? An overview of EPD Program Operators worldwide, and the international EPD system, and the process certification. Later on, we'll move to a more practical portion where Leo will show tricks and tips for creating EPDs in SimaPro. And then we'll hand it over to Jori, who will focus on automation. So using Report Maker, that's SimaPro Report Maker, to automatically update LCA and EPD documents, automation of data collection, and Outlook, which is basically a sneak peek into what we are developing and what will be on the market later this year, hopefully. So we hope to have enough time for Q&A. Feel free to fill in your questions as we go along. And at the moment, I'll hand it over to Leo.
Okay, thank you very much, Ruba, for the nice introduction. I will now start giving the short introduction into environmental product declarations, EPDs. And after that, I will shift to the software and show you some tricks how to create EPDs in SimaPro. I will make my screen bigger. so you can see it better. Okay. Yeah, there we are. Okay, so what is an EPD? An EPD is a type 3 eco-label standardized by ISO 14025 that provides information about the environmental performance of a product along its entire life cycle, so it's life cycle based. And here you can see two definitions, one from ISO and the other one from the International EPD system. And the International EPD system emphasizes that it's a document that is transparent. It is also verified by a third party, and it provides comparable information. Let's take a look at the advantages of an EPD. Well, the EPD is a document that is internationally recognized. It's credible because it's based on the principles of lifecycle assessment, and it also goes through a third-party verification. Actually, the EPD is open to all types of products, so there is no minimal level of environmental performance. And an EPD is comparable. If you take two EPDs that are based on the same rules, the same PCR, these are the so-called product category rules, actually they will be calculated in the same way, and so they are comparable. Well, in theory, they are comparable. In practice, there still might be some difference. So in practice, it might not be always the case. Okay, let's go to an example of some EPDs. Here we have an EPD of an Italian furniture company. And they made an EPD of their table collection. So on the left-hand side, you see the front page of the EPD. And on the front page, you find the name of the product, of course, Ginger in this case. You find always a photo of the product. And then there is some additional information. Also, the program operator is mentioned. In this case, the International EPD system. The rules of the program operators are mentioned. So the general program instructions. And for their systems, we are in version 3.0. The PCR is mentioned. So the PCR, I just mentioned it, are product category rules. So the PCR on which the EPD is based are mentioned. And these are the PCR for the furniture sector. And then we find the publication date of the EPD and the expire date and the registration number. So that's all the information that must be put on the first page. An EPD document has about 10 pages, more or less. And on the right-hand side, you can some fundamental information. So a key information is the table with the environmental impact categories, with the results of the LCA. And in this table, we can find results on the environmental impact categories, resource indicators, and waste indicators. So here you can see the results. There are the totals. And we can also see a division into upstream processes, core processes, and downstream processes. Furthermore, in the EPD, there is always information about the certification process. So here you can see which kind of certification has been done. It can be either an EPD process certification or an EPD verification. And well, I will come back later on the difference between each two. And also the certification body is mentioned. Okay, here another example of an EPD. We're still in the furniture sector. This is a Norwegian company, and they provided an EPD of one of their chairs, Norwegian company. So they applied to the Norwegian EPD scheme. And also, well, the information in the EPDs are quite similar. So also on the front page, we see similar information. We see the photo of the product, the name of the product, etc. And on the right-hand side, I have selected some key information that can be found in this EPD. So again, we have the results on the environmental indicators, global warming, etc. And we see here a difference because here the division has been done in a different way. Here we have a division from A1, A2 till C till D. And this looks very like the splitting up like it's done with the ISO 15804. Also in this EPD, there is information about the verification process, and typical of the Norwegian EPDs are also that they repeat the key environmental indicators. The format of the Norwegian EPDs is similar for all EPDs, so all they have exactly the same format. This is a bit different for the international EPD system, and where the format is free, so you are more free to select your own layout, but the content, of course, should be always the same. It should contain the same elements. Okay, let's now take a look at the different EPD program operators. Normally they're organized by country or they are organized by sector, and by sector I mean then the building sector. And well, in this slide we see some operators that are organized by country. And we have here, for instance, we have Japan, Norway, Sweden, South Korea, and Italy. And please note that here this list is not complete, and also numbers are not well, necessarily up to date. Okay, the EPD program operators are relatively young. For instance, the international EPD system from Sweden, they started in 1999, and most systems originate from that period. There are some systems that are older, like some building EPD systems, and also some are younger. For instance, the system in Italy, EPD Italy, has started only 2 years ago, and you can see it also in the number of EPDs they have published, which is relatively small. The international EPD system has quite a large number. They reach now over 1,000 EPDs. Here we can see the EPD program operators of the building sector. And well, the numbers are quite impressive. Many systems have more than 1,000 EPDs. So we can actually say that most EPDs are have been published for building products. We have a system here in France, EBU in Germany is quite known. We have UL Environment in the US, etc. And all these EPD program operators are also organized. They are organized in a platform. It is called Eco Platform. And in this way, they can harmonize their methodologies. Very important for the harmonization is also that they all rely on the same PCR, which is the ISO standard 15804. And so this is actually the PCR for the building sector that has been standardized in this ISO standard. Okay. Let's go now to the international EPD system. So the one which has a Swedish owner, but it's open to many countries, all countries worldwide. And here you can see what kind of EPDs they have been publishing so far per category, per product category. And well, we see again that the construction products, that is the main sector. So for the construction products, the largest amounts of EPDs have been published, followed by the food and beverage sector, paper products, furniture, machinery and equipment, and other sectors. So you can see that this system has a wide diversity of EPDs. And as a consequence, they also have a large amount of PCRs published. So they have for many product sectors that they have the rules on how to do the LCA and the EPD. So the PCRs, they have been published and are available. Okay, let's take a look at the procedure of the international EPD system. And here we have to distinguish 3 levels. So we have the accreditation body, certification body, and the company that wants to apply for an EPD. Well, the accreditation body is represented by the program operator. And so the program operator needs to accreditate the certification body. And then the certification body is in the position to verify the EPDs and release the certification. Okay, how does it work? Well, if a company wants to create an EPD, it has to start with an LCA study, and then this LCA study must be based on certain rules, and these rules are called PCR, product category rules. So here you can see what methodological choices should be made by doing the LCA. When the company has finished their LCA study, they have to report the results in a declaration, in a draft declaration, and so this is the EPD, and invite a certification body to do the verification. So the certification body will come for an audit, check the calculations, and check the documents, and when everything is okay, the result will be communicated to the program operator. The EPD will be registered, and then it will be disclosed and become publicly available on their website. So that's more or less the procedure. Here below we have two other figures a little bit repeating this procedure. So on the left-hand side we have the procedure for the EPD development, and on the right-hand side we have the procedure for the PCR development. So again, the EPD development. If a company wants to create an EPD, first it should look if there is a PCR available. If not, it should develop the PCR and then perform the LCA according to this PCR, compile the information in an EPD, invite the auditor to do the verification, and then finally there is the registration and the publication. Okay, what happens if the PCR is not available?
Yes, it was just a question exactly now from the user, so I'm glad you're getting into it.
I have to look for the question.
Sorry, I meant that somebody just was asking what if a PCR is not available. But,
okay. Oh, great. Thank you, Ruba. Yeah. Okay. I just came to this point. Yeah. So if the PCR is not available, a company can also initiate the development of the PCR, and that starts with the initiation phase. And that means that the company should contact the program operator, and then the program operator will appoint a moderator, and the moderator has to task to guide the PCR development. So in the next phase, the preparation phase, the moderator will draft the PCR. And then once the draft is available, the PCR needs to go through open consultation in a way that branch organizations and stakeholders can all comment on the draft PCR. And after that period, which takes normally 2 months, the moderator will update the PCR and then submit it to the technical committee of the program operator, and they will then need to approve the PCR. Once it is approved, it will be published, and the PCR can be used. Well, this process of PCR development normally takes a while because you also have the open consultation. So average, I would count on 1 year, but of course it can be also faster or even slower, depends on the process. The EPD development, it's shorter. The average period, I think, would be 6 months, but also this can vary a lot. It depends a lot on how much time you need for the LCA. The rest is not so time consuming. So, okay. Now I've come to the EPD Process Certification.
Sorry,
well, with
let me interrupt you for a second. Yes.
Yes.
So there was a question. So does it mean if there is no PCR, it's up to the individual company to pay for developing that PCR? Is there also a general PCR program that can be followed for any, for example, material or for specific industry? Do you have any idea about how that works?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for the question. Well, if the PCR is not available, a company can volunteer. So it is a voluntary process. And in this way, the company puts time in it, or the company pays a consultant, or so it's his, he will finance it in this way. And well, then if he takes this challenge, well, he is also recognized for the work he did, of course. So it's also good for his image to have a PCR developed. Does it answer your question, Ruba?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, okay. So it's a voluntary process. Okay, then I come now to the EPD Process Certification. Well, with the EPD Process Certification, the company does not certify a single EPD, but the procedure how to create EPDs will be certified. And this means that once certified, that the company can independently release their EPDs. Of course, the EPDs have to go through an internal audit, but in principle, the company becomes autonomously to release the EPDs. So what are the advantages of this EPD process certification? Well, first of all, you reduce the certification costs, because instead of inviting the auditor for each single EPD, the auditor comes only once a year to check your EPD procedure. So there is you have less certification cost. Another important advantage, I think, is that the company will increase its awareness with lifecycle thinking, LCA, and EPDs, because they have this kind of procedure in place, and so they have more fully integrated this knowledge in their company. Okay, so this was a short but hopefully comprehensive overview of EPDs. I've come now to the tips and tricks. So the first tip and trick I would like to explain is how to create a lifecycle impact assessment method that exactly calculate those numbers that you need to put into the EPD. Well, for that, I've listed here on the slide the indicators that are required by the PCR, in this case, the PCR of seeds. So we can see indicators for the use of resources. We can see indicators for the potential environmental impacts. So these are the classical LCA impact categories. These four are required. So we have global warming potential, acidification, we have smoke formation, and we have eutrophication. Then we have indicators for the waste production, and we have the other environmental indicators. And again, these are indicators that are based on classical LCA impact categories. So we have this need to calculate these indicators, and how can we do that? Well, you can do that by create your personalized lifecycle impact assessment method. And I will now switch to the software to see how you can do that. So I hope you can see now the SimaPro software. And well, in methods, you can choose to create a new method. Well, in this case, I call it my lifecycle impact assessment method according PCR, and you put in a number. Okay, you go to the characterization, and then here you start adding your impact categories. Well, you can do that by going to the origin method, selecting the impact category you would like to add, you will need to add, and then like this you continue. I will try to give an example. So I go to the CML baseline method, because the indicators of the this EPD system are based on this method. I take global warming. It's over here. I can simply copy it. Copy. I go back to my own method. I had to put it over here. Yes. I go to the characterization and I copy it inside. Okay. In this way, I have added the first impact category, and well, if I continue, I can then complete the whole list of indicators that is required by the PCR. I will not do it now because it will be too time consuming, but I've done my homework. So it's over here. It's here we can see the method filled in fully. And so here we have all the indicators that are required by this PCR. Many of them come directly from a lifecycle impact assessment method. So they have the normal impact categories. But there are also some that are not related to LCA. So let me give you one example. For instance, material to recycling is not an indicator that is related to your LCA, but you need to report it. So it can be added anyway to this method by simply defining an impact category, and then in the impact category you add a substance, in this case waste to recycling, that works as a counter. So it can count the amount of waste that goes to recycling. This will work, of course, only if you put this elementary flow also in your LCA model. So if you adapt your model, you add also the elementary flow in your LCA model, well, then this method will also calculate the indicator material that goes to recycling. How can you add so the elementary flow to your model? So here I have it in the method, but I also need to add it in my model. Well, it's quite straightforward. In your waste treatment processes, here, for instance, we have the process of PP recycling. In this process, we have the normal recycling process of equipment, but we can also see here, over here, that the elementary flow waste to recycling has been added. So it's now in my LCA model. And if I run the lifecycle impact assessment method, it will also calculate this indicator. So with the personalized method, we can calculate both the typical LCA lifecycle impact categories, but also some not related indicators. Well, let's run the calculation, I would say. So I go now to my LCA model. Product stages, LCA. This is an LCA of a seed. We use it for our regular trainings. So we have more examples, but this is one of the examples we use. And if I run now the calculation, analyze for this LCA model, so we do the calculation, we will get the results. So we will get results for all those indicators that are needed in the EPD, and we could calculate it because we have set up our personalized lifecycle impact assessment method according to this PCR. Here you can see the figure. We can also go to the table. So here are the numbers, and well, you can also file export. You can export this number to an Excel file and then import it in your EPD document. This can also be done automatically, and Jori will tell you more about this. Okay, so that's one of the tricks that I would like to show. Now we'll go to the second one. And maybe you already noticed that here the division of the LCA results are per lifecycle stage. Here we have the assembly of the seed, distribution phase, use phase, waste scenario, and the packaging. And actually, what we need to do in the for the international EPD system is to make another kind of division. We need to divide it per upstream processes, core processes, and downstream processes. So that's the point of the second trick. So how to divide up, core, and downstream? Well, if you go to the PCR of seeds, you can see here an overview of the system boundaries. And in the upstream module, basically you have the materials. In the core module, you have the transport of the components to the company. You have also assembly operations, storage, and maybe some treatment of waste that is generated in the core module. And then in downstream, you have the distribution, use phase, and disposal of both the packaging and the product. So we need to divide our results in these three modules. How can you do that in SimaPro? Okay, we go to our LCA model. I go to network, then I can see my model. Okay, and maybe I should now explain a little bit this LCA model because it's new for you. So just to give an overview, this is an LCA of a seat. You have here the assembly parts. You have the shell in polypropylene. You have the legs in steel. And then we have the distribution phase. There's also we have the additional LCA to model the packaging part. You have to lower the cutoff so you can see a little bit more, maybe 1%. Okay, but you can see a little bit more. Well, this is our LCA model we will be working with in this webinar. Okay, well, I will still lower this a little bit, 0.1%. Okay. Okay, now the question was, how can we make this division of the results in upstream, core, and downstream? I can do this with group analysis. This is a function you can find over here. And I can simply define my groups. So here I add the three groups. So I have upstream. Okay. I have core processes, core. Okay. And last one, I have downstream processes. Okay. Okay, and now I can select the parts that should go in each lifecycle stage. So for upstream, which is basically the materials, I take the assembly. And this is the assembly of the seat, but we also have the assembly of the packaging. So that's the upstream. If you select a box, then everything what is below will also enter in that part. In the core process, well, in the core, I have the transport of the components to the core process. Where is it? It's over here. That is this process, so transport by truck to the core module. And we also have the assembly. So that's part of the core. And in downstream, we have the distribution phase, the use phase, the waste scenario of the seat, and also the waste scenario of the packaging. Okay, I can save this setting. So save as, well, let's call it up core and down stream. Okay, save as. Oh, save it. No. Oh no, I have one click. Yes, I saved it over here. Correct. And now, if I go to the impact assessment, the division is done according to this splitting. So we have the same final results, but now they are split up by upstream, core, and downstream. So this is a table. So again, I can export it. And once I export it, I have it in my Excel file, and I can import it in my EPD document. Or if Jori helps you, you can also do it more automatically. We can also have the figure. So here again, you see the figure of all the indicators that you need to report in your EPD. And then we see them split up by upstream, core, and downstream.
And now we have a question. Is there a risk for double counting if groups are not on the same levels of the system as the system model?
Yes, okay, let's go back here. You have to know a bit how the group analysis thinks, how it works. Actually, if you take the top level, everything what is beneath will go in that category, but you can also specifically exclude something. So in this case, I needed to exclude on purpose the transport by truck. So I have selected it and indicated in the other one, So in this way, it has been all gone to the core. So actually, there's no risk of double counting. It's more a matter of putting the process in the right category.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, great. So this is one way to do it, to split in upstream, core, and downstream. And actually, the group analysis is very useful for this. But there's also an alternative. The alternative would be that you organize your LCA model in another way. Here I have it done as an example. So we'll calculate results. Okay. And I have to lower a little bit the precision. So let's put again 0.1%. Okay, here we can see that the LCA is organized by these three first levels. So we have upstream, core, and downstream. And this means that if I calculate the results, automatically the results will be split up by these three processes. So I go to impact assessment and you can see, okay, you did the division by up, core, and down. So also here we have the table, up, core, and down, with the same results and the same splitting. To do this, I had to apply some small tricks. Let's see where they are. One is the transport. I don't see it. How that? I have to, of course, I have to load to 0%, otherwise I can't see it. Okay, one of the tricks you have to apply is that, well, normally the transport to the core process is a transport that you find within the modeling of the materials. And you don't want it to be accounted with the materials. So what I did is to create a dummy process with a zero impact. So this is this transport. And then this amount of transport has been inserted in the core process. So in this way, I was able to add this transport to the core instead of being calculated within the upstream. Another thing I had to do is the assembly that normally goes into the assembly. Now the assembly line has been inserted in the core process. So these are some things you have to do to rearrange your network. But if you would do it like this, with on the upper level, upstream, core, and downstream, then when you calculate the results in the impact assessment, you get automatically the division of these three lifecycle stages. So now I come to my last trick, and that is the check of the 10% data quality criteria. So in the EPD, we have a requirement on the data quality. Only as a maximum 10% of the environmental impact can be represented by proxy data. And so more than 90% of the data should be based on primary data or selected generic data. And there is a trick in SimaPro to check this data quality. For that, I will need to go back to my LCA model. Okay, so I go to the LCA of the seed, I run the calculation. Okay, so I have my network, and let's lower a little bit the percentage, 2%. Okay, I have my network, and this check I will do also with group analysis. So I can use group analysis to define two groups. So I have the first group, which is the proxy data, and then I define another group, which is primary data and selected generic data. Okay. And let's assume that the powder coating of the steel legs is based on proxy data. And let's assume that all the rest is based on primary or selected generic data. So I use now group analysis. You have to save this setting. This is data quality check. Okay, I save this setting. And now if I run the calculation of this calculation setup, so I can find it here in calculation setup, data check. I just changed the method because I only want to see the impact categories. Okay, if I now run the calculation, okay, I go to the impact assessment. I can see the contribution of the proxy data to the environmental impact categories. And we can see that the proxy data is in none of the cases it's larger than 10%. So in this case, the data quality is good enough to get the EPD. Well, that was my last trick. I think my time is also over. I hope I didn't take too much time. And I would like now to pass over to Jori.
Thanks, Lee. Before we pass on, just a quick question. We had a few attendees asking about the proposal to align EN 1584 with PEF, that there might be new indicators proposed. As far as I know, there will be a voting there in a couple of weeks. Maybe you could, I don't know if you have more information on what the developments are at the moment.
No, I know that everyone is following with much interest, but I'm not inside, so I really don't know the precise ultimate information about that. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Now Jori will take over from here.
Can you say that the questions too?
Yes, and I've indicated earlier that we're having quite a number of questions, so we'll try to answer them as they come along, and further at the end of the session, and if not, by email. So please bear with us. Thank you.
Hi everyone. So I will make a quick series of explanations and demo on how you can automate these tricks that Leo demonstrated. I will start with directly following from what Leo just shown, which is how you can use Report Maker, which is an add-on for Microsoft Office that allows to link data from SimaPro to an Excel or a Word file you prepared. So I prepared a project in SimaPro, which I'm now going to show. This one. So it's a simple, it's based on the 15804 model, but it's simplified and basically fake data that I made up. It's let's say it's a piece of parquet with some raw materials here, some transport, some energy and packaging for the manufacturing, construction and installation stage, so transport to the building site and some construction, which I will explain a bit further, and end of life scenario. Simple, it's a generic scenario from EcoInvent for the Netherlands. Let's imagine, so when you calculate this, you get this data. I saw a question just coming up asking if there was an update of the method. If you already have SimaPro 9, or you will have soon, if you have a valid service contract, we are publishing in it an update of the EPD method that is delivered with SimaPro. So it will be called EPD 2018, I think. Yeah. And this contains a bit more than the 6 indicators that used to be in EPD. And in particular, the energy, which is the cumulative energy demand, so LEPF here, with the correct use of the energy content value, because the EPD has a difference with which higher or lower calorific value you should use compared to the cumulative energy demand. The rest is something that we made ourselves, following exactly what Leo showed earlier. Also, one thing I didn't do yet, as Leo shown, when you look at a EN 15804, you don't want to report as the whole block of C, the whole block of A, and etc. So I made some groupings, and I lost my groupings. So I'm going to relaunch my calculation setup. So when Leo was doing save as, this is what it does. It's creating a calculation setup that you can call again. I call it again, and it's calculated. Now I have my grouping. This is normal. I can put my 0 threshold here. So I have my grouping in A1, A3, A4, A5, and C4. So my impact table is immediately split into A1, A4, A5, and C4. What did I do on top of that? I also added some description. So for example, my project is called My New Fancy Parquet. I'm the author, and I explain a bit what it is about, and what is a functional unit. This is not necessary, but it's to show you how you can automate that as well. And then I have here this template that I downloaded this morning from the EBU website. So EBU is the German EPD Program Operator, especially for the construction sector. So I downloaded one template for floor covering, and I just made some little modification to, well, start filling up some fields. And you can see here, you can see that owner of the declaration is the author of project, name of the product study is the name of the project, author of project is etc. etc. And a bit down below you have something. So how I did that is a simple trick in SimaPro that in a lot of fields, not all of them, but in a lot of fields, you can simply right click and have this little menu here that says copy item descriptor. And when you copy an item descriptor and you paste it in Word or Excel, it will appear like that, name of project. And you can do that also the same way from a results table, copy item descriptor. You can also do it from a chart. And then, for example, I didn't do it yet for the chart, so I will show what it does as soon as Word accepts to do things. I paste the item descriptor. And now that I've done that, once you have installed Report Maker, you have a new item in your office, which is called SimaPro. And in SimaPro, you can update your descriptors. Then descriptors are processed, they are getting updated, and you will get your template filled up.
Yeah, maybe it's good to know. I don't know if all of you already are using Report Maker, but since last year, it's now included in your service contract as well. So if you have a valid service contract and license, and you do not have Report Maker yet, just reach out to us and we'll set it up for you. So.
Oh, after a few blinks off screen, you can see that the owner declaration is myself. My project is called My New Fancy Parquet. Here, even I put some data. I filled up the declared product and declared unit, etc. And you can be more, of course, wordy. You can describe more. I cut out the long parts of the report because yeah, it was not necessary for demonstration. But you can see here that the A1, A3, A4, C4 have been replaced. Here there's a few of the indicators, so same as Leo shown, but I didn't fill the data in the model, so they were not calculated, and etc. And you can see, for example, let's find out here, we have 27.7 global warming potential. If I go to my model and I will modify a value. So I put parameters everywhere, and for example, I say, well, my wood is not 18 but 35 kilos for some reason. I save my parameters. If I update my descriptor, it will only update the one I asked to update, and the values are immediately updated. It's now 36 kilos of CO2 equivalent. And that works as well if you can create a template. You copy your template, it will work. So it's a quite handy tool if you have a model that doesn't change much except parameters, and you want to automate the creation of the template itself. So that was my first demo. As Ruba mentioned, if you have a valid service contract, Report Maker is now available, so you can just contact support to get it. Now I will show you something else. Also with your service contract, you have an access to the online platform that we developed currently, which is called SimaPro online platform. And this platform is composed of several modules that are extensions to SimaPro. You may heard of Share, but it's not the one that I'm going to demonstrate today. Today, I'm going to demonstrate the two others, which are Collect and Flow. Basically, Flow is a simplified version of SimaPro, so it's a modeling tool that is online-based. It's a lot simpler and limited compared to SimaPro, but you can do interesting modeling with it. And Collect is a collection tool that helps to collect data, and because they're based on the same platform, you can build connections between them, and so that you can get a connection that is tailored to the sense that you can make it simple for your users to fill in the data with the simple names. You can make it dynamic. That means as soon as the people providing the data do fill in the tables, you see the data as an expert in your model. It's collaborative because we have a little communication support tool, basically a chat box built in within Collect, and all data entered by the respondents are saved, which means even if the expert modifies them later, they are saved. So traceability is ensured. I'm going to demonstrate it now. I'm going to connect with my demo account. So this is the interface you may be used to, but here I'm going to move to the demo that we've defined. So we have here a model with 15804 base model, which is the same model as the one I showed in SimaPro. So a parquet demonstration, which has been actually modified to also being able to calculate material circularity indicators, but that is another story. And with this, I'm going to show you that canvas. We can have a good view of the model. I will show you that there is one part. I prepared this before, but of course I forgot that I would be logged out because of my settings of timeout. So here we have the same model, but we thought, oh, instead of the expert being the one entering all the data, he needs some inputs from the production site manager, for example. So we are going to link directly the model to a questionnaire that we send to the site manager. And so you can see here my model for the A3, so the manufacturing, has 5 links to collect, 4 links that are collecting data, so information on packaging, output waste, output emissions, and then input energy, and then a parameter which is mentioned here, number of products per year that are produced. And here I can go to my list of sub-projects, and I can link that to my collect survey. Here I have my collect that I will send to a respondent, and I am asking for some data on annual production. I'm actually going to show you directly the data for the respondent. I change navigator for that. And now I can show you. I've been invited here to complete this questionnaire. So here, as a respondent, I can fill in some amount. So I can say, okay, this is energy for heating the factory, and this is then heat, and it's produced from natural gas, and we consume 10,000 megawatt hours per year. We also, I know as a respondent that we also have electricity in the factory to cut out the wood. Electricity, and the factory is based in a Nordic country, and that's 0.1 megawatt hour. Save and go back to dashboard. Now if I go to my canvas again, you will see that the data are immediately entered in the platform, in the model. You can collect, so as I mentioned, you can collect data. So so here you see there's 2 new set of data, electricity and heating, which are immediately linked to library data, and the values are now flagged with a little yellow eye, which means the expert has to give some check on that and validate or not the answers, because sometimes we know that the answers are not very accurate. So it's always good to have a double check and being able to answer and say, no, please change, or are you certain that what you're saying? Okay, so that was my demo. My second one.
Yeah, maybe just quickly mention the output and then take a few questions.
Yeah, so I'll just quickly mention, because this is all nice and well, we have 2 things separated. We have a report on one side with the desktop version, and we have a collection with the online version. But of course, the best would be to have both in one platform. So I'm going fast through my thing, but we are now thinking that what is the key for LCA models and for LCA in general is to maintain this transparency that SimaPro expert can provide, while at the same time providing simplified tools for non-experts to use and make use of the results and the interpretation of LCA. So that's why we are working on several tools for that. And this one, collect, is one, but the next idea we have is to create a reporting tool, and we are working on it. And the idea is this: the expert can create a tool, we call it a tool, that will be linking a model, a data collection template, and a report template, and publishing it for a business user to fill in a copy of the data template for himself, and on the click of a button, obtain a report. And linking that to a process EPD like Leo demonstrated earlier, you could have a tool that is actually verified and that you only need to verify once a year to produce actually verified EPDs according to a program operator. That was very fast, my last presentation, because time is running out.
But you'll hear more about these developments when they come out, yeah. Of course. And we'll probably, was a lot of interest, so we'll probably reschedule another follow-up session in the near future. But for now, I'd like to pick up just maybe a couple of questions. I know we're now at 4 o'clock, but if you hang on a few more minutes, then we'll wrap it up. Leo, maybe you can answer the next question. If the is the EPD Process Certification, so for process EPDs, available for all program operators or just a few?
Well, I can answer the
yes.
I know they don't.
Sorry, I was already talking, still on mute. Yeah, so 2 EPD program operators have it. It's the international EPD system, they have it for sure. Also EPD Italy has it for sure. The other EPD systems I don't know, but that might be also the case, but I'm not sure.
Ibu mentions it.
Okay.
And I think last year they were telling me that they actually never had anyone asking for it, but I think now they have a couple. And EPD Norway has presented last week a tool that were developed by several Norwegian manufacturers that follows this certification.
Okay.
Okay,
and
great.
Maybe one more question, going back to regarding the verification of EPDs. So who or which organization performs the verification?
The verification of the EPD has to be done by a certification body, and it is important that the certification body has been accredited by the program operator.
Okay.
But that can be also, depending on the program operator, an independent consultant.
Yeah.
That have been accredited by the program operator.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. We have a few more questions that remain unanswered, but I think we can follow up by email. Thank you all for showing up. Leo, Jori, thank you so much for your demonstrations. We'll wrap it up now. If you have any follow-up questions, please send them to support or to Jori or Leo at the emails shown. And yeah, keep tuned for upcoming webinars. And thanks again for coming. Have a good afternoon. Bye.
Okay, thank you very much.
Goodbye.